So the 2025 All Blacks season, what a paradox, right? One minute, they looked absolutely unbeatable, and the next, they just completely crumbled. Today, we're going to unpack all of it. The incredible highs, the shocking lows, and the huge questions that are now facing New Zealand rugby.
This one phrase from journalist Patrick McKendry, it just nails it. Consistently inconsistent. It perfectly sums up the big puzzle of Scott Robertson's first full year as head coach. How on earth can a team be so good one week and then look so vulnerable the next?
So how do we even begin to make sense of this? Well, we're going to break their season down into 4 key parts, and we'll start with that big picture paradox.
Okay, so the year started with so much hype. A brand new coach, a fresh attacking game plan. Everyone was optimistic. But it really didn't take long for some very familiar cracks to start showing, especially when the team got put under some real pressure.
Now, if you just look at the stats, you might think, hey, a 73% win rate, not bad. But, and this is a big but, as anyone who actually watched the season knows, that number doesn't even come close to telling the full story. It was a complete roller coaster.
All right, so let's get on that roller coaster. When you look at the actual results, you can see just how wildly this team's performance swung from one game to the very next. And check this out. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Look at the contrast here. You've got these amazing, dominant wins against France in July, and then right next to them, bam, really tough, damaging losses to Argentina and, maybe most shockingly, to South Africa at home.
And nothing, I mean nothing, shows this paradox better than the Springboks saga. In Auckland, against the world champs, they put on a clinic. Defensive masterclass, sharp attack, it was classic All Blacks. But 1 week later in Wellington, it was a total, complete collapse.
36. Just let that number sink in for a second. 36 unanswered points in one half, at home. This wasn't just a loss. This was a record-breaking capitulation where thousands of their own fans apparently just got up and left the stadium early.
And the scary part? That Wellington meltdown wasn't some random fluke. No, this became a pattern. A bad second half cost them the game against Argentina. And then they gave up 25 unanswered points against England at Twickenham, which cost them that coveted Grand Slam tour.
So you gotta ask, right? Where is all this inconsistency coming from? Well, to get some clues, we kind of need a peek behind the curtain into what was going on with the coaching staff.
So get this, in just 2 years, 2 really important assistant coaches are out the door. First, Leon MacDonald quits after just 3 tests, saying there were differences in coaching philosophy. Then, late in 2025, Jason Holland confirms he's not sticking around either. I mean, that's going to raise some serious questions about the team environment, right?
And through all this, what's the head coach, Scott Robertson, saying? Publicly, he's all in, totally backing his guys. When he was asked point blank after that England loss if he supported his coaching staff, he was firm. But you can bet the fans were starting to wonder.
And of course, online, the fans and the pundits were all over it. The phrase that kept popping up was poor optics. People were asking, what's really going on here? What are the specific roles of these coaches? And what's the environment really like?
But, and this is important, it wasn't all bad. Not by a long shot. Because while the team as a whole was so up and down, some individual players were just on another level. Absolutely outstanding.
I mean, who else? Ardie Savea, the guy was the team's absolute rock. Just consistently brilliant, a force in almost every single game. He pretty much swept the New Zealand Rugby Awards, and honestly, he just cemented his place as one of the best on the planet.
And then you have this new guy, Fabian Holland. What an impact. He comes in, starts 10 tests in his very first season, and just impresses everyone with his relentless work rate and his toughness. And to top it all off, he gets named World Rugby's Breakthrough Player of the Year. Wow.
And let's not forget about Lester Fanganaku on the wing. Man, his power game was something else. He comes back from playing in France and just instantly becomes this key player. You could see right away that his blend of speed, power, and that offloading skill was exactly what the team had been missing.
So, where does that leave us? What's the takeaway here? You've got these incredible world-class players on one hand, but on the other, you have these old, familiar problems with the team as a whole that keep popping up. So the big question as we start looking towards the next World Cup is this. Is individual brilliance alone going to be enough to paper over those cracks? That's the paradox Scott Robertson has to solve. And fast.